Welcome back to Country Living with the Wades. I'm Philip, and this is our garden. Today is April the 20th. A lot of the things in our garden this year, we started from seed. So this video is to walk you through step by step from seed all the way to plants as full as they are right now. Now you can see our potatoes. We started those from seed potatoes, two different types of seed potatoes. Some of the potatoes are already starting to bloom. We have Rutgers tomatoes that we started from seed. They're starting to bloom as well. We have some squash started. Now, nothing is producing fruit at this time, but things are getting pretty close. You'll really like our broccoli and our Brussels sprouts. They have grown this big already. Like I said, we started from seed. Now, our first seeds were planted on the 19th of January. This is the 20th of April. That's February, March, April. That's 3 full months. So that we've already gotten into our season, and like I said, it's only the 20th of April. So I hope you enjoy this video as we walk you through our nursery to garden plants. So this is our nursery spring edition 2022. Today I'll be planting seeds, getting an early start. Today is January the 18th. The weather is still really bad outside. It's not really bad for us. Down here, it's been freezing the last couple of days. It's rainy today. It's supposed to be freezing again for the next few days after this. But I want to go ahead and get these planted. I bought one of these, what is it? It's a Pro Hex professional seed starting tray. Now, this one has 72 what they call hexagon cells. There are 6-sided cells, and it comes in 2 sections. It has a water tray below, and it also has a dome that I'll be putting on the top afterwards. And today I've got a bunch of seeds that I've already bought. I have carrots. I won't be planting the carrots today because I'll plant those directly in the raised bed. And the okra, 2 types of okra actually, another type here. We'll be planting those when the weather is warmer in the large garden. Same thing with the squash. It'll be planted in the large garden. I will be planting broccoli today. This one is I guess the Cico, the Cico or whatever. It's D-E-C-I-C-C-O. And this is the onion. It's an evergreen bunching onion. I'll be planting about half of these. One of these full trays probably will just be this. Tomatoes. These are Rutgers tomatoes. I'm going to try the Rutgers this year, and I'm going to try and grow them correctly where I'm actually pruning as I should be during the season, tying them up and so forth, so I have a better fruit selection. And of course, Brussels sprouts. I'll plant Brussels sprouts in the spring and in the fall. So with that, the first thing I need to do is I need to fill this with my mix. Now this, I just bought a mix here. This one is the Miracle Grow seed starting potting mix. Now I've opened it up and I've played with it a little bit. I'm really pleased with how soft this is. This is very, very fine. There's no sticks in it at all. So it feels like it's about 90% or better of peat moss with some other things built into it, I'm sure. It says especially formulated for fast root development. So we'll see how it goes. Let me go ahead and just dump a bunch on here so I can spread it a little better. Oh yeah. This is the first time I've actually tried to start seeds this way, so for me it's an experiment, and you get to see where I do something right and where I do something wrong. But that's the whole object of these. It lets me go back and look also at the videos, and I can say, oh wow, I did this last year or the year before, but this method that I'm using now is better or worse or whatever. So I use these videos also to teach myself what I should and shouldn't do. So I'm going to press it down just a little bit because this is really, really soft stuff. I'll take but a second here. Everything's pressed down just a little bit, ready for me to put the seeds in. Well, this seedling set will be placed in my pantry because my pantry, the light's off all the time. It's basically temperature controlled because the big freezer in there keeps it at a fairly warm temperature all the time, even in the winter. Oh, one of the first things I need to do is I need to label the seedlings so I'll know what I planted in which hole. I went ahead and I divided the tray so that I could put all onions in one side, since these are the little small evergreen bunching onions. and they're supposed to be planted 2 inches apart and rows 12 inches apart. So I'll go ahead, put one of these in each one, and the spacing this way will almost be correct anyway. So I have some labels here. This one is Brussels sprouts, broccoli, onions, and tomatoes. So I'll start with the onions first. It says the onions are supposed to be planted about a 1/2 inch deep. Well, that's actually pretty deep. I don't know if you can see that very well. Just a second here. I'm getting sometimes 3 or 4 in one, and it's not good. I have to do a lot of thinning on this, I think, because it's going to be hard to go back and get the seeds back out. I didn't put all the seeds in. I still have plenty of seeds for a second crop later in the year. All right, so this one is, I said it's going to be the onions. I'll go ahead and stick this in here before I cover everything. I'm going to cover with some more here. All right, that's the onion. Now then, these are in rows. There's 6 to a row. 2 rows will give me 12 tomato plants. For us, that's a lot. So I'm sure I'll be taking some of these to our church that we go to when they're ripe and letting some people have some free organic tomatoes. Or when these are little too. You know, some tomato seeds are pretty good size. Some are fairly small. These are not the smallest, but these are pretty small. And like I said, these are the Rutger tomatoes, Rutgers. So I'll go ahead and I'll plant 2 rows of these. There, that's the tomatoes. That was quick and easy. Tomato, here's the tomato sticker. Put it in before I'll go ahead and I'll do the same thing, 2 rows here of the Brussels sprouts and 2 rows of the broccoli. Brussels sprout seeds are very small as well, but these are round. And being round, it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to just get 2 in a hole. So, put a little bit more over the top of these, and I'm going to press them down. Okay, now it's time to add water. Put some water on the top side as well to make sure it's thoroughly saturated. And then I'll put the dome on it like this and put it in the pantry. Well, the Brussels sprouts and broccoli have popped up. Nothing's showing on the tomatoes or the onions yet. I want them to be able to get a lot of sunlight, but it's too cold outside to stick them outside right now. It's about 40 degrees. I want to make sure the other things germinate. So there's a nice warm spot by the front door. Let the sunlight shine in. Well, it's been 2 weeks and a day or two. I don't know the quality of the soil that's in there other than being able to make sure it germinates very well. So I've mixed a little bit of Miracle Grow into the water that I'm using to water them. So we'll see if that helps. Well, it's been 3.5 weeks now. Today is the 11th of February since I planted the seeds. You can see all the tomato plants are up, all the Brussels sprouts are up, the broccoli is up. One of them did not produce. All the onions have come up. By keeping up with when I plant these and when I can transplant these lets me know what I can do to improve this next year. And I'm really thinking I should have started the broccoli and Brussels sprouts about 4 weeks earlier, because I would really like to have those in the ground right now. They can handle a pretty good frost. Well, it's the middle of February, and this is one of the test beds that we did for testing carrot germination. It didn't germinate real well. They sort of scattered out a little bit, but we're pulling them up, and the carrots are really nice looking carrots. So yeah, good, nice looking carrots. And we're just pulling up the carrots as we're out here talking about.
That's what happens when you plant them too close together.
Yeah, that's what happens when you plant them too close together. You don't thin. And there's the hole inspector. See anything in there? Let's see.
Hard at work.
Man, he thinks there's something in every hole he sticks his nose into. I can set out a 5-gallon bucket, drop a bolt in the bottom of it, and he'll sit there for hours sticking his head in there and looking at it. Well, it's been 4.5 weeks since the seeds were. Today I'll be planting the Long Imperator number 58, and it says it's 72 days to harvest. The pack of seeds is really small, but carrot seeds are really small. Actually, there's quite a lot of seeds in that packet. They're small. I'm going to try and count some of them and then estimate how many seeds are in this package. All right, I've taken all the seeds and poured them into this little dish. I shook the dish around to try and level out the seeds to make it equal all the way around, and then I divided off a section that's about 10%. I'm going to count these and try to scrape off about 5 at a time and see how many is in there. It appears there was about 100 in there, so this little bitty package of, what did it say, about 1.7 grams of seeds has about 1,000 carrot seeds in there. One package should be all the carrots that we would want to plant this summer. And we've tried 5 different types of germination methods, and the one that works the best is the one I'll be using for this. So what I need to do now is wet everything down very, very heavy, really soak it real well so that I can plant the carrots in just a few minutes. We've tried 5 different ways of germinating carrots, and we've come out with the best absolute 100% guarantee this will work every time. So now I'm just doing a good wetting, really wetting it down really well. I want the water to soak in real deep so that I don't have to worry about the seeds drying out during germination. Well, step 1 was preparing the soil, breaking it up, making sure it's good and fine. Step 2 was watering it real well. Now step 3, I've placed these boards on here, and I'm going to walk on the boards for 2 reasons. I want the boards to press down a little bit into the dirt, so it leaves tighten it up a little bit, and at the same time I get the impression of the board so I know exactly where the borders of the board are. So now you can see the board I've just taken out. I've got a good clean edge, so I know where the edge of the board is and where it's going to cover. And the reason for that is I want to plant the seeds underneath the board. I hope the camera angle is good enough so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to just poke my finger in, make a little dimple about every 2 inches. You know, go up to about a knuckle. Just do it in rows. Underneath where the board covers. All right, I finished seeding this group. Now then, before I cover it up, I'm going to take this potting seed mix now, which is real fine. I'm just going to lightly sprinkle over each one. So now I'm going to try to gently water this. Oops. I want to try and gently water this. Not to wash the seeds away, but just to dampen everything again before I cover it with the board. I want to tell you, when I was putting these seeds in, they're so small, I try to get 2 in each hole. Say if I had 1,000 seeds in a packet, that means the maximum I could actually grow would be 500 carrots. But I think a lot of times I hit 3 and 4 just trying to make sure I got 1 in because they're so small and trying to drop them. I'm not getting any runoff. It's soaking into the soil very quickly. Now I'll place my board back on it. Because I'm using a piece of thin plywood, I know it's going to bow up because as it dries on the top side and it's still wet on the bottom side, it's going to try to bow up. And I want to keep it real close to the top of the soil to make sure that the carrot seedlings stay good and wet. The biggest problem that you have with carrots, trying to grow carrots, is you have to keep everything wet completely for, gosh, 4 weeks. All right, this side is done, and I guess in about 6 or 7 days we'll pull up the board and just take a peek. Well, the second side, you can see my row's pretty clear now since the sun's not shining real bright. Well, it's only been 6 days since I put the seeds in the ground here and covered them. So normally from our testing it shows that about 10 days is what it requires for 100% germination, but I'm curious. I want to go ahead and take a peek now. I see one or two. They're very few right now, but there's one right there. There's another one there, another one there. There's just a few started, one over here on the end. Only about 3 or 4% germination. Still takes a few more days. Let's cover it back up. Today is day 9 on the carrot seeds. I've just pulled the boards off. You can see my hole pattern, and from right here it doesn't look like anything, but let's get in close. Hopefully you can see the germination, how well it's doing. It's not 100% yet, but the ones that you don't see yet have already started, so just give them another day or two. You have to make sure we keep everything wet. So you might ask, why do I do the holes? Why don't I just fill the holes up completely after I put the seed in there? I want to keep them covered with a board during the germination, and I want to make sure all of them have a chance to germinate. And you can see those that have already germinated. See how tall they are already? They're already taller than what the hole is, and they're looking for a way to get up even higher. If I had the hole completely covered, they wouldn't have anywhere to go, and they would be growing, pressing up against the board. So when I make the holes a little bit deeper. I drop in the seeds, and then I cover them with just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit of the potting mix. Now, even though I've got the little baby carrots that I planted that are just finished germination, I planted about 500 or so, even so, we had a frost come, and the frost was a tough frost. It was a hard freeze. I think it got down to 26 degrees after several days of in the high 70s and low 80s. It killed some of them, but we should still get a very good harvest. Well, good morning. Today is March the 17th, and this is my little nursery of the onions, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and tomatoes that I planted. I've got all these bunch onions, and I should have just planted them directly in the dirt, but we'll see how they come out. I'm going to plant them right behind where the carrots are. The carrots come up to right here and stop. I've never grown bunch onions before, and I thought I would just try it. Now here's one thing that about raised beds. You want to make sure that your raised bed is not too wide. You can see right now I'm at the side, and I can reach all the way to the middle, which is okay. If it were any wider, maybe 1 block wider, I would not be able to reach it, and it would be very difficult. Well, that's everything planted that I'm going to plant right now on this raised bed. That's the 4 tomato plants. I have 3 rows of the bunch onions, and then I had about 500 carrots. We'll see how many comes up, but we should still have a big bunch, at least 300 carrots here. But the carrots have to stay wet for several weeks, and the things that I just planted have to be watered. The Lord blesses us every day with good health, life, the joy of knowing who He is, the joy of seeing His great creation, and just thanking the Lord that He's put us responsible for it. Well, here's the large garden. You can see it's all tilled. And this end here, I'm making a large compost area. A large compost area there. Now here you see I have 2 rows ready to plant. These will be planted. I'll be planting the red Pontiac potatoes, and I've already planted 1 row here. Now the row that I planted here was potatoes that we grew ourselves last year, and we've kept in the refrigerator, and they're all growing eyes on them. These next 2 rows, I'll be planting these seed potatoes that I purchased. Now this was a 5-pound bag, and it cost $3. And there's, I don't know, maybe 25 in there, and you can see they're all ready to go. I don't think I'm going to cut any of these. If I run a little bit short of length, I may end up cutting 1 or 2 of the big ones. Other than that, I'm going to plant them just like they are. Now I tilled this garden area 2 weeks ago, and then I came back the next week and tilled over it again, tilled it deeper. So that should help a lot with weeds and also with a lot of the insect that might be in the soil. Now this area here, these 3 rows here, I've mixed in almost a full yard that's half and half cow manure compost and potting soil. So that's why this looks a little bit darker than the other. So I want to really see how this grows this year. I'm planting my potatoes especially deep. These are potatoes that we grew last year that we saved out and just kept refrigerated. And these are the seed potatoes that I'm planting here. Now I'll have 2 rows of these seed potatoes, and the row closest to the compost pile will be the ones that we left over from last year. Well, all the potatoes are set. And the first row, the row on the right, are all whole potatoes. And the row on the left, about the first half are whole potatoes. All the second and last half there are split potatoes. I made 2 potato sections from each potato there. So what you see there is $3 worth of seed potatoes, a 5-pound bag. Well, the reason that I mixed in the potting soil and compost mixture into the existing dirt was because this dirt gets very hard very easily, and I also wanted to enrich it for later years, and I really wanted to test burying the potatoes deep just to see how much improvement in the yield I would get. Well, today is March 30th. It has now been exactly 4 weeks since I planted the potatoes. Now you look at the row on the right hand side next to the compost area. Those are the little red potatoes that we had left from last year. And these 2 rows are the rows that I used from the seed potatoes that we purchased. And now you can also see we have peppers and tomatoes planted over here in the large garden. And this row here with a light layer of compost on it will be okra when it starts to come up. A couple of more squash plants, and then some jalapenos on the other side. All right, today is March 30th. All right, you can see the little turnip and mustard greens in rows that were planted 4 days ago, coming up just like they did before. Some leftover carrots, some more bell peppers. That's our onions and garlic in the background. Our little baby carrots that are coming along, they don't look like much until they get a couple of inches tall, then all of a sudden they just take off. Some bunch onions there, and here you can just see a couple of squash just starting to come up. Some more Rutgers tomatoes that we planted by seed. Well, today is April the 9th. Look at the 3 rows of potatoes, and you can see this row here is peppers with a tomato on the end. More Rutgers tomatoes here, some squash right there, some jalapeno peppers down there, and this area here is still open. Well, today is April the 17th, and this is just one last quick look at the garden just before I go ahead and make this video. And look at there, that's one of the culprits right there. You see that butterfly? White butterfly with the spots. That's the one that makes the cabbage worms, and it could also be the one that makes the army worms. They're very similar. But that's the turnip greens. That's the onions and broccoli in the back, some leftover carrots, some bell peppers, tomatoes, with a couple of strawberries in the front, bunch onions, squash, tomatoes. The bed of 500 carrots is really taking off now. You can see some of her strawberries coming up, and those that she just tried to plant, where she planted a couple of strawberry runners in the blocks. See a jalapeno that we planted in the blocks also just for testing. A couple of squash plants, a couple of tomato plants. Now we had 2 more tomato plants back there in the back, but the storms were so violent that they blew them around so bad they actually damaged the plants at the root. And you can see the Brussel sprouts and the broccoli in there. That's just really taken off. These were started by seed January the 19th. Today is April the 20th, so it's 3 full months.